At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
And I am Anthony Sied. A pleasant welcome to Focus on Liberia. We have always been about educating. We have always been about promoting the nation Liberia and the things about that great nation. Today marks another important day in promoting what is Liberia. Liberia's culture makes Liberia. One citizen of our dear country who has committed himself to what is Liberia is Dr. Joseph T. Gbaba Sr. Today marks a 50-year jubilee, and this is an anniversary, 50 years anniversary. He has been promoting, teaching, preaching, and preserving Liberia's culture globally. There has been a journey he has been on. He has committed his life and resources to it. He has trained young Liberians and continue to, for he believes and understands what is Liberia is no Liberia without our culture. And so what a great way to begin the new year. Happy New Year 2024. If we want to claim or reclaim what is Liberia, to know who we are as a people, and to project ourselves as a group of people having a unique identity, this is it. I will present to you my guest, a Liberian citizen who works, speaks for himself so profoundly. I call him Dad. It's good to have you. How are you doing? Happy New Year to you and your beautiful wife and family.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year to all of you, all Liberians, all citizens of the world. I want to say happy New Year to all of you. We pray that this year will be a wonderful year of peace and reconciliation in Liberia. And also, I urge all Liberians to join the incoming administration for us to build our country. This is time for us to build our country. Happy New Year to everyone all around the globe, especially in Liberia.
Thank you. And thank you, Dad, for that powerful and inspiring uh, happy New Year greetings to the people of Liberia. And I'm sure you did that in your name, in the name of your family, your beautiful wife, and from the institution that has been teaching us about who we are as a people. I am so grateful. And so, folks, we will ask you to do us a favor by sharing the broadcast with someone in your contacts. If you have not known anything Liberian yet, this is one of it. And this is how we begin the new year. The Rabbi Dr. Joseph Gbaba will give a speech intended for the people of Liberia and the nation Liberia on the subject, our culture. And Dr. Baba, it's all yours for your presentation.
Thank you so much. The Golden Jubilee 50th anniversary speech, preserving, preaching, and promoting the culture of Liberia globally, a 50-year journey. Your Excellency George Weah, outgoing President of Liberia, and Your Excellency Joseph Newman Boyka, President-elect of Liberia, and Vice President-elect Jeremiah Kpankun, the President pro tempore and members of the Liberian Senate, the Speaker and honorable members of the House of Representatives, Your Honor, Madam Chief Justice, Associate Justices, and members of the Judiciary of Liberia, members of the Cabinet, Diplomatic Corps, and international community, fellow citizens, ladies and gentlemen. I wish all of you and the entire universe a happy and prosperous new year on behalf of my wife, Princess Araminta, our children, grandchildren, and myself. I also wish the outgoing president of Liberia and his team God's bountiful blessings as they exit the stage and as we begin a new political scene in the history and culture of Liberia. As a traditional Liberian cultural icon for the past half a century, 50 years, I would like to pour libation to the spirits of our ancestors, offer kola nuts, pepper, and salt to warmly and traditionally welcome our father and distinguished elder, His Excellency Joseph Newman Boyka, President-elect, and the incoming Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Liberia. At this time, I will pour libation to do that. I have this glass, and I will just pour a little bit to the spirits of our forefathers, to give thanks and glory to Almighty God for the transition that we will be going through very shortly. And also, I will share with you virtually white kola nut. I will dip it in the salt and pepper, and I will taste it. And you will do likewise spiritually, since we are speaking to you virtually. And then I will also take the white powder. In the Crown language, we call it kobebe. And I will put it on my forehead and wish the incoming administration God's bountiful blessings that whatever you do, you may prosper, that the people of Liberia will speak with one voice and render their support to our leaders so that peace and reconciliation can prevail, and that all Liberians at home and abroad will work together to rebuild our country. And we ask this in the blessed name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever. Amen. In the Crown language, we say, Boyepa, let there be good fortune, let there be long life, let all Liberians live happily and be successful in whatever we do. I will now continue my speech. The theme of my Golden Jubilee speech. The theme of my Golden Jubilee speech is love, national integration and unification. This is because I cannot think of anything else that would have made it possible for me to travel on a rough and tough 50-year journey that took me over many slopes, hills, and valleys, except for the love of Almighty God and all those that helped me carry the heavy burden of promoting the culture of a nation and people practically out of pockets for 50 years. I recall very vividly that my journey began with a calling from God. It began as a vocation and in the form of a dream. At that time, I was in the senior class at Carroll High School in Grassfield, Yucaipa in Nimba County, northern Liberia. In my dream, God gave me a command 50 years ago to tell the Liberian nation and people that we are one people and that we must love one another and live in peace and harmony. So, as an obedient servant, I rose from my bed, grabbed a writing pad and a pencil, and began to write my first play entitled Life Story of Kakula. The theme of my first play was national unity and integration. That was 50 years ago, in 1974. It was in support of President Tubman's national unification and integration policy he had introduced earlier during his administration and prior to his death. The purpose of the national unification and integration policy was to unite the people of Liberia and to bridge the socio-economic and political gap between the elites of Liberia that were predominantly descendants of settlers and most Liberians that belonged to the majority indigenous sect of Liberia that were impoverished and marginalized politically, economically, and socially. In fact, there is a National Unification and Integration Statute of President Tubman, William V.S. Tubman, in Vonjima, Lofa County. The statute is a reminder to all Liberians about the dire need for Liberians to live in peace, to integrate freely, and to be united in building Liberia. Hence, even though there has been great improvements with respect to integration of Liberians through interethnic marriages, yet there is more to be desired in terms of national unity. Sadly, during most of the past 50 years under review, we spent most of it from 1979, that is the rice riots, to 1980 military coup, onto the rebel incursion in 1989 on Christmas Day, until now. We have just been fighting among ourselves, killing one another and destroying the infrastructures that the people before our time built with their sweat and blood. And what is so disheartening is that after all the pain we have gone through, we cannot pinpoint any real good that we have derived from inflicting pain and suffering on innocent civilians, vulnerable women and children, the elderly, and in particular the youth of Liberia that were deprived of the opportunity to learn. Though I was born in the Armed Forces of Liberia barracks at the Barclay Training Center in Monrovia, Montserrat County, no soldier gave me gun to shoot my mother and father. No adult recruited me to be a child soldier when I was a child. The adults in our lives were responsible, God-fearing people who taught us to pray. They encouraged us to go to school, and they gave us presents, gifts, when we excelled in school. They taught us to love our neighbors as ourselves and to put our country first. They forbade us to steal, to kill, to lie, to bear false witness against our neighbors, to covet our neighbors' wives, and they taught us to respect our elders and our parents so that our days may be prolonged. When someone stole during our day, he or she was dressed in rags and adorned with leaves and ridiculed in the community. This is quite unlike today when we hail thieves as honorables, quote unquote, and elect murderers in the national legislature of Liberia and in the executive and judicial branches of Liberia. So during our days, when somebody stole, they will grab you, put rags on you, and they will ridicule you in the society and call you Tiffy, Tiffy, John Koliko, Roll, John Koliko. So it wasn't something that people would just openly do as people do today in the Liberian society. That is why we are praying that the incoming administration will be very, very strict with respect to securing the limited resources of Liberia. Today, I'm going to reveal to you what God wants us to do as his chosen race. We are the Israelites of the black race, and Liberia is the Canaan that God promised our ancestors. Today, I want to inform you that the slogan on the Liberian national seal, which reads, "The love of liberty brought us here," does not only apply to the descendants of free slaves that emigrated to Liberia. It also applies to descendants of indigenous Africans, because our ancestors left East, Central, and Southern Africa in pursuit of freedom and in search of more farmland. So indeed, God designed and blessed Liberia to be the Canaan he promised our ancestors and the free slaves that returned home after more than 500 years of slavery and hard labor in the Western world. Also, I would like you to remember that even before the slave trade, those whom you refer to as quote unquote Congo or American Liberians or Creoles were once part of us, and they still share the same blood that we share. Therefore, my question to you is, what would you call a Kra or Pele or Kru man and woman who fled Liberia during the war and came to the United States and naturalized as a Liberian citizen? Is he or she not an American Liberian? So, because a Crown or Pele man or woman became a U.S. citizen and thus became an American Liberian, does that make that individual less Pele or Crown or Mandingo? I will leave you to ponder on that question and scenario while I move on to the next chapter of our discussion. But I want you to remember that moving forward, January 1, 2024, that the idea of calling your own brothers and sisters names and trying to segregate between your own brothers and sisters while you are embracing foreigners is not part of God's plan for the people of Liberia. Moving forward, we must embrace one another as brothers and sisters and move forward because that's who we are. The next part of my speech has to do with putting your faith in God. My beloved brothers and sisters, it is always good to put your faith in God. My 50-year journey has been a journey of faith and trust in God. And what I would like to share with you is that when God gives you a command to implement, He shall provide the wherewithal for you to successfully implement His mandate if you put your trust in Him. You will recall that in the Holy Bible, God always appeared to His prophets on the mountain. I am not saying I am a prophet, but I had a similar situation like the prophet Elijah and Moses. I received my calling on Mount Nimba in Grassfield, on the lower range of Mount Nimba. I had a dream, and in that dream, God gave me a mandate. When God chooses you, He does not consider your tribe or family. He calls whomever He wants to call. As a crown man born in Monserrado, you would have thought God would have called me from Mount Jide or from the Putu Mountain in Grand Jide. No, He called me in the land of the Mans, in Saint Ben Clan, in Nima County, to deliver a message to His people who were segregated. I'm talking about 50 years ago. 50 years ago, we're not as united as we are today. Even though we still got that disunity there, that's because our culture has been denigrated. But once we put our culture up top and we begin to teach it in our schools, in the universities, and we begin to promote it throughout the length and breadth of Liberia, definitely that will create national consciousness and national pride in who we are as Liberians. And it will also unite us because we are preaching the message of national unity. The picture that you see there on the screen is the unification, national integration unification monument that is in Vonjima, Lofa County. That monument, that spot is a historic spot. So, for instance, if we were really preaching our culture, if we were living our culture, that spot will be known by all Liberians, especially the young people who were born during the wartime. They need to see that spot. They need to visit that historic spot because that historic spot was set aside by the government of Liberia to celebrate our integration. Because long time ago, before the Republic of Liberia was established, we always had different kingdoms and principalities. So you have Pele country, you have Gio country, you have Kru country, you have Crown country, you have Crown kingdom, different kingdoms. And a crown man would look at a Mana man or Gio man coming from a different land as a foreigner, as a stranger during those times. So the establishment of the Republic of Liberia was a very good thing because what it did was it amalgamated, it united all the different ethnic groups and different ethnic kingdoms and principalities into one unit. one monetary state. So that also is very, very important. So I received my calling of man Nema. I had a dream, and in that dream, God gave me a mandate. When God chooses you, he does not consider your tribe or family. He calls whomever he wants to call. And so after I had my dream, a very strange feeling fell upon my soul. It appeared as if some invisible force grabbed me from the bed and made me to sit at the table to write. The entire writing process seemed like electric current passing through me, like a conductor of electricity. As I wrote the play, I began to think on different scenarios I felt would make the play a hit. Being a student, being a student of literature under Brother Edward D. Egan, an English linguist who spoke over 5 European languages and that taught me world literature, Shakespeare, and French, I was prepared academically to test the literary waters, even though I had never written, directed, and produced a play before in my life. But I believe there is always a first time, and that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Against this backdrop, I elected to write Life Story of Kakula as a satire. I interspersed it with scenes from a traditional Pele village and mainly set the play in a Congo settlement, namely Keresburg. And in the play, Kakula, or Pele boy, was sent by his parents to live with a settler family because they wanted him to become Kui. In those days, and you're talking about 50 years ago now, in those days, the literacy rate was even more, was higher than what it is now. And in order for you to become, quote unquote, civilized, you had to speak the English language, you had to go to a Western type of education and all of that. So they sent their son to live with this family in Keresburg, and Kakula ended up getting married to, ended up loving to this his adopted parents' daughter, and she got pregnant, and the parents made them to get married. When they got married, they had children, and their children became the offspring of both the indigenous people and the settler people. So what I was trying to portray 50 years ago was the same thing that President Totman had foreseen when he introduced the National Integration and Unification Policy. So, but also, as I was saying, the other thing that's important is that when God blesses you, or he chooses you, or gives you a mandate, he will always provide. So you may be wondering, how did Dr. Gbaba, for the past 50 years, manage, where did he get the resources from to put up productions, whether in Liberia, in France, in the United States, everywhere I went for the past 50 years, I've always put up some kind of cultural performance to promote the culture and history of Liberia globally. And not only that, but also God provided the opportunity for me to study English literature at the University of Liberia, received a scholarship to attend the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, where I did my master's in drama and cultural studies, to also receive scholarship from the United States government to study education. So you can see that when you put your trust in God, he will provide the wherewithal that you need in order for you to do his work. So through the grace of God, today I am prepared to assist the Republic of Liberia and the United States of America as well, in the areas of culture, Afrocentric culture, literacy, curriculum development, and teachers training, etc. Because these are two critical areas of the country that we need to develop, we need to improve, we need to fund, so that our people can be literate, so that our people can be educated on the importance of exercising their constitutional duties as citizens of Liberia. Life story of Kakula debut at the Open Door Theater in Yekepa, Nema County in northern Liberia in 1974, 50 years ago. 50 years ago, I staged my first play at the Open Door Theater. And Sony, the slide will be the previous one to this one, before this one. Yes. The slide that you're looking at is the Open Door Theater in Yekepa, Nema County. This is where 50 years ago I produced my first play. My appeal to the incoming administration, to His Excellency Joseph Nwama Boyka, is that I would like for that building to be declared a national cultural property, because this building represents the start of a new era in the promotion of Liberian history and culture. Here in this building, I introduced theater, acting, directing. In this building also, Carroll High School produced a lot of musicals. And also, Yekepa is such a beautiful place, especially with respect to the weather, with respect to the climate, with respect to the vegetation, with respect to the culture of the place. The building is located not too far from Mount Nema. Mount Nema should also be declared a historical spot, because this was where our Mayan ancestors went to pray to God, to pray to Kamen. This is where they went to make sacrifices for good luck, sacrifices for successful farming, sacrifices for protection against the enemies. So this area is a very important area, and I would like for the government of Liberia to declare the Open Door Theater building a national cultural center and property, where sometimes, especially when I'm in Liberia, I will also spearhead cultural festivals to be held in that building. The people, most of the audience members who watched the play said they liked it because its theme, national unification and integration. They said they also liked the way how I weaved the storyline by having Kakula, an indigenous Liberian, fall in love with the daughter of a settler family that supposedly adopted Kakula. To some adults, the story resembled some real-life instances that occurred that I did not know about at the time, but that I later learned about as an adult. Like the story of J. Rudolph Grams's mother named Victoria. Her name originally wasn't Victoria because she was a vile woman. She wasn't Victoria, but as I said before, in order to be accepted those days, by the elites and the status quo, you had to anglicize, you had to have an Anglican name, an English name, like Joseph. Like, for instance, my traditional name is Toma Galode Gbaba. The Toma there is a Gio name that was given to my father when he was born by a Gio chief, who was a very good friend of my grandfather's. That was like almost over a century ago. So what that tells you also is that over a century ago, our people were very friendly. They were united. It's not like the way how the politicians make you to think that all the crown people, the minor people, and the Gio people are supposed to be enemies. No, we're not enemies. We are in-laws. The Towais, the Tuazamas, all those people are our children. They are children born out of interethnic marriages between the crown people and the Gio people and some people in the minor people. I had my aunt, Rachel Boyu Nayu. Rachel Boyu Nayu, that was my aunt. And she was a minor woman that lived with my uncle throughout her entire life. So, the idea of trying to create tension and misunderstanding among Liberians, that is something that I seriously disagree with. I disapprove it. And I'm appealing also to the government, the incoming administration, for us to work together to educate our people regarding that. Now you can see also that I, as a traditional royalty from the Crown ethnic group of Liberia, graduated. My graduation ceremony took place in the Open Door Theater. I went to school in Nimba. I lived in Nimba as a child during the diamond rush in the 1960s. I was even in Saniquale when Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, and President Totman came to Saniquale in the early 60s. I saw them with my two eyes. So the idea of continuing to make people to think that the people of Nimba and the people of Grand Jubilee are supposed to be enemies, that is something that I just cannot understand. I cannot comprehend it because I live there. My name is Se. My Gio name is Toma. I live there. Nobody bothered me. Nobody did anything to me. I have Gio minor, students that I taught and all of that. And so that is a ploy by Liberian politicians. And I also will recommend, when the new administration gets settled, I will also recommend that a law be passed. A law will have to be passed in the national legislature regarding anyone who's going to be going publicly and inciting citizens, creating enmity and tension in the country. We must pass a law for that so that heinous behavior and crime can be stopped. So also, as I was saying, so let's take the instance, the situation about J. Rudolph Grams. J. Rudolph Grams, for most of you who are children out there, J. Rudolph Grams was the longest serving Secretary of State of the Republic of Liberia. So for some people who didn't know his background, you would just consider J. Rudolph Grams to be a Congo man. But his mother was a vile woman from the KwaZulu family, who, of course, got some education and in that process married Louis Arthur Grams. Louis Arthur Grams. And from marrying Louis Arthur Grams, of course, her son, J. Rudolph, was Secretary of State. Her daughter, Mary Antoinette Brown Sherman, was the first female president of the University of Liberia. And she was president of the University of Liberia when I was a student there. And we had a very good relationship. She supported my work. And also, before she even passed, when she was here in the States, when I came to the United States and staged a play in Philadelphia, we invited Dr. Sherman to come to that production. And she made it her duty to appear. What a blessing that was to see her. But what I'm trying to say is that the adults in our lives have always been very supportive. They show us the right way to do. So shame on those so-called politicians and adults who bought guns and forcibly conscripted children to become criminals. And then in the end, after they achieve their political agenda, they are now referring to those kids as Zocos and all of that. But we pray that there will be services that we can render these young people, such as adult literacy, such as vocational and technical training, engaging them into agriculture and other things that other worthwhile pursuits that will enable them to live better lives and to reintegrate into mainstream society. But one thing that I also want to say is that during the production, I give you an example again. During the production, Charles B. Roberts, we call him Charlie B. Charlie B. Roberts was the administrative manager at Lamco. He enjoyed the play so much, he was laughing. He had a big bass. And he laughed so loudly that I was sitting downstairs, watching the play and making sure everything went well. I could overhear him. He really enjoyed himself. And there were other adults that did the same. And after the play, Charlie B. Roberts asked his special assistant to call me because he wanted to speak to me. And when I went to see him, he said, "Young man, you wrote this play?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "That was fantastic. I like the idea where you made you talk about integration and unification. That's very good, And he didn't stop there, but he instructed his special assistant to give me $500. $500 50 years ago was a lot of money. I began my wealth. My wealth started a long time ago from working hard and doing the right thing. The other thing that I want to tell you, young people, is that you don't have to steal in order for you to be wealthy. I can give you example of certain Liberians. Cooper was a farmer in the Congo Town area there that worked hard to get his money. There were other outstanding Liberians like Clarence Parker. Clarence Parker was a businessman. He was rich. He had money. But he was very creative. So if you are creative and you are fortunate to get the support of the people around you, you can use that creative power to do something positive for the nation, to do something positive for yourself. You don't have to steal to be rich. I just want you people to understand that because it's important. So these elders really encouraged me. And not only did Charlie B. Roberts do his part, but then someone that later became my surrogate mother. Now I'm talking about mothers. Now this is very important. I want all the mothers to listen to this. Mrs. Dolly McCready Massaquoi. She was a school teacher at the international school in Yekepa. She went to the play as well. You see, those days people were, culturally inclined. They appreciated the culture. So So if you have something, they will come. They will come to it. And they enjoyed it because it was educational. And that's how we met. So Mommy Dolly came to the production. She saw it. She was so overwhelmed. She took her own time and wrote me a note. And in that note, she said, "Congratulations, Joe. I foresee you're becoming the Shakespeare of Liberia." Then there was another elderly person. He was the magistrate at that time in Yekepa. Magistrate James Harris Sr. His son and I, his two sons, Roland and James, peace be to the ashes, they were my classmates. And he came and he said, "Joe, you wrote this play?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Man, that was good. That was good." So there were many people who wanted Liberians to be integrated. And all these people that I talked about were not indigenous people. They were descendants, American Liberians, Congo people, but they also supported the idea of integration and unification. And that's the way we should go. So 50 years ago, that was what the Lord had taught me to do. And after that, after my graduation, I went to Monrovia, to the University of Liberia, which is the cradle of my growth as an artist scholar. This is so very important for you to understand that the University of Liberia has been the pedestal of our Liberian history and culture. Many great men and women passed through those walls. And at the time when I was a student at the University of Liberia, we had a good number of well-educated scholars from Cornell, Harvard, you name it. And so we learned. We went through the rigorous process of earning our grades and all of that. But the University of Liberia served as my breeding ground. There I received the blessings of the students and faculty to pursue my calling as a playwright. I even became more popular when I briefly served as Secretary General of the Vanguard Student Unification Party of SUP. So those days we were part of the Amanda, I wave to, Amanda, I wave to. But you better know what you were on, because they had the security people that were eyeing people, and they will sometimes arrest students and do all of that. But it was fascinating because we were doing it for a cause. And that cause was the inequity that existed at that time. And we felt that it needed to be told internationally, especially for people like us, from indigenous backgrounds. Our parents, like my mother, she was a businesswoman. She used to sell palm oil, dry meat, rice, anything you can think of to send me to school. But she sent me to school and she financed my education, as if to say I was a son of one of the big shots in Monrovia. Anything I wanted, I could get, because her thing was that she wanted me to learn what she didn't learn. Even though later on in her old age, my mother went to school and she stopped in the sixth grade. She could read and write. She could read the Bible and all of that. Because you see, the indigenous people, the only problem was that they didn't have access to education, to educational opportunities. But very, very, very smart people. And that is reflected in us, their children. What we are exhibiting are things that we inherited from them. We didn't just get it because we came to school to go and learn it, but it's genetic. But the University of Liberia, was the place where I really grew as a scholar and as an artist, because I had massive support from the Student Unification Party, massive support for ASAP, which was a rivaling, a student political party on campus, etc. And during that time also, I spent some time under the tutorship of Kona Kaisu. I must give Kona Kaisu credit as an older brother because he embraced me when I came from high school and wanted to do what he has studied. He also is one of the few Liberians with his master's in theater arts from Boston University. And he worked as a director with the National Cultural Center. So that's another issue that I'm saying here, that those days during Totman's time and also during Talbot's time, the government always kind of employed people who were competent, who could raise the cultural banner of the country internationally. We have Honorable Bati, who was a father to me, and he was one of the best African ethnographers in Africa and in the world before he passed. Was a very, very great man. I'll be talking about him too as well. And also during that time, I had the opportunity, as a playwright and poet, to do a lot of appearances. Tipote was also another person that gave me a lot of support. And when they had their Moja, Moja rallies at the Sports Commission, he would invite me to say a poem and all of that. So that also was very, very great. The following year, 1976, after I entered the University of Liberia, I was elected as president of the Silver Jubilee freshman class. And during that time, I wrote No More Hard Times. No More Hard Times was a satire that reflected the socioeconomic sufferings, inequalities of the indigenous people and also the masses. During those days, we spoke those, socialist, communist terms, because our older brothers then, Tipote, Jew Mason, Famule, Bacchus Matthews, they were advocates of those kinds of theories. And it was very new and it was very confusing as well, because already the democratic system, Republican democratic system that was established in Liberia was not, clearly understood by the masses. And now these young people were coming up with socialism and Mao Zedong, and Benito Mussolini, these different activists and all of that. And so that was very conflicting, and it coincided with, not only coincided, but it countered the Liberian government's, conservative approach and alliance with the United States of America in supporting capitalism. So at that time, there was a mental battle among the citizens of Liberia regarding whether to go communist or to go democratic and capitalistic. So No More Hard Times, when I produced No More Hard Times, it became very popular because it resonated with the people, it resonated with the masses. It reflected their conditions at that time. And so that's one of the things that culture does. Culture, especially the performing arts, or kind of promotes, it educates and it entertains. And that kind of education, entertainment remains in your mind because you see it is visible and it becomes very convincing. And in that cast, I've been training a lot of people from my youth. I've always been a leader and been training, my colleagues and all of that at the University of Liberia. In that cast, we had I was Mr. Kamara in the play. Now, another thing that happened was that at this time I was also venturing. I was becoming more, prolific as a playwright. I was gaining more experience in theater and all of that. So when I wrote Noble Hard Times, I directed it, I wrote it, and I produced it. So those are things that you can't find very easily among professionals in show biz. You either are an actor or a director or something. To have those kinds of skills, multiple skills, is something very rare. But again, if God wants you to do something, if He blesses you, that's what happens. So in that case, that's what happened. And so we traveled. Part of the cast included James Etta, Howard Wolokoli, the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. So these are, and have a lot of people that are trained. So if we're talking about raising funds to establish a school of the performing and visual arts with people that were in my cast, Dr. Zubonska, Dr. Nathaniel Siedu, Dr. Maul Major, and former Ambassador Sharif, Mohammed Sharif, you can just go on and on to name them. But the thing here, the pathetic thing is that people do these things, they benefit from the exposure they got to be able to express themselves, and to learn a little bit about their culture and all of that. But then in the final analysis, when we got out of the walls of the University of Liberia, a lot of those colleagues of mine who were even with soup and all of that changed overnight. And that's one of the things that knowing your culture will help you to do. It will help you to be constant. It will help you to be self-confident. It will help you to be faithful because you know who you are. You know what you're standing for. You know what your values are. Culture will give you that power for you to resist the evils and things of betraying yourself and betraying your country, as a lot of people have done in Liberia in recent times because of the lack of self-knowledge and because our culture has been deeply attacked. The establishment of Decorative Artist Theater started at the University of Liberia in 1977. And what is also important, the other step that is important that I want the Liberian people to know is that theater, the performing and visual arts, music, dance, literacy, these are very strong elements that can help in the development of a nation and people. It can help in reshaping the mindset of the people, for them to understand who they are, so that they don't, or denigrate their own culture. They don't denigrate themselves. So at the University of Liberia in 1977, that particular year, President William R. Tolbert Jr. Now, this is also very important for all of you, especially the young ones who were not born during the Tolbert administration or during the Tolbert administration. President William R. Tolbert Jr. was an enlightened African world-class leader. He was president of the World Baptist Alliance. He was president of the Liberian Baptist Alliance. At the time of his death, he was the chairman of the Organization of African Unity, etc. One of the great things that he did that I remember that inspired me was that in 1977, President Tolbert launched the National Fund Drive for the Liberation of Southern Africa to raise money to support Michelle and all those freedom fighters, Bishop, the bishop that died now, Episcopal Bishop, and all these people, freedom fighters in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique, in Angola, in Namibia, and also in South Africa. At that time, Nelson Mandela was still imprisoned on Robben Island. And so he raised, I think, over $500,000, to fund the liberation struggle in those places. The other thing that I want you to know about Liberia is that Liberia has been in the forefront for the liberation, the total liberation of the African continent. All of the different countries today, even including little Ghana and Sierra Leone, Guinea, all of those countries, Liberia helped to speak on their behalf at international fora to ensure that they gained their independence. So when you saw ECOMOG coming to our rescue in time of need, they were just paying back. It was just a payback, tiny bit payback. Because so at this time when President Tolbert launched the National Fund Drive for the Liberation of Southern Africa, the government of Liberia needed some kind of communication medium or media, to educate the Liberian people why the government of Liberia was supporting the liberation struggle in Southern Africa. Southern Africa meaning those countries that I just named: Mozambique, Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, all those places, etc. So I was very curious, and I wanted to be a part of it because as a SOUP, member, that was something that we took very seriously. Liberation of the people, whether in Liberia or wherever it is. So we took that very seriously. So I decided that I would write a play. And during that time, we had a lot of South African refugees that attended the University of Liberia. Some of them were at the AME College of Medicine. So and then also at that time, Mariam Makiba, Hugh Masekila, Filimahu, and sometimes Stokely Carmichael will visit, Liberia, and most of the time they will be at Galilee Floral Park near the Catholic Hospital. So I made my way there to interview them, to interview Seppo, one of the boys that was on the dorm at the medical college. And then I trained my actors, Claude Langley, Joshua Howard, Kathy Loco, Mona Bidell, Eugene Wilson, Melvin Smith, a whole lot of talented, Liberian youth that I trained, and also we trained them to speak like South Africans, so that when we put up the play, you wouldn't think that it was Liberian actors, portraying the play. So when we did the open house, we had the open house section in 1977. That was attended, again, listen to what I'm saying with respect to responsible people being put in responsible positions in government. When we had the open house theater, open house performance at the W.V.S. Totman Hall on campus, the Capitol Hill campus, we invited the Minister of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism, Dr. Edward Beyond Kessley Jr. We invited Baiti Moore. We invited Cousin Mosquito, Congresswoman Melinda Jackson Parker. We invited Dr. Sherman, Mary Anthony Brown Sherman, and all these people that I'm talking about. You didn't play big shots like the way the young people these days are in government do. All those people attended. They came to give their blessing because they know the importance of something like that. And at that performance, they saw us perform an excerpt from the Chains of Apartheid. And that shocked them because we were able to convert the policy of the national government into something like a movie, into something like a production. And when they saw that, people were convinced, and President Tolbert got more support for doing that. You see? So then at the end of the year, we went to we performed the full play at the E.J. Raw Theater, for the public. And it was attended by Tipote, Drew Mason, Eugene Shaw, and other people came there. So those days when we did performances and attend to them, and they will support to raise some money, whatever it is. But it was also very encouraging because of the encouragement that we got from them. And then coming forward, we also decided the following year, which was 1978, because we finished with 77 now, 1978. In 1978, we did another thing that was very important at the University of Liberia, was launched the first Gbaba Drama Festival in the country. During that time, for an entire week, every evening, there will be a new play of mine staged in the auditorium. And we have people come from all over the country. So those, especially those that live in Firestone, Grand Bassa, areas where they have pavement and all of that, people came to that thing. So at that time, in that year, 1979, 1977, 1978, 1979, it was a period of cultural renaissance. It was a period of revolutionary activation in Liberia. Now, when those kinds of things happen in the country, it opens up the minds of the people. So one of the things that happened during this period was that as the young intellectuals, the progressives began to unearth some of the corruption of the old system and all of that, people began to see things that they were deprived of knowing. And that eventually led to the coup. Now, also with respect to what happened with President Tolbert, the blame should not only be cast on the military to say that they did it on their own. They did not do it on their own. As I told you also, that because of his farsightedness and his Pan-Africanist perception, he fought the system, because when you're fighting apartheid, you're not only fighting the people in South Africa, you're fighting the Western world. When you are raising money so that your fellow Africans can be liberated in Zimbabwe and in Namibia and in Angola, you are fighting the Western world. So part of that is a consequence of his love for his own continent, his own people. Also, so with the change of apartheid, that following year, after the drama festival, we made our first trip. We made our first international trip to Sierra Leone. And in Sierra Leone, we performed at the Fora Bay College, we performed at the Freetown City Hall, and we performed at the State House at the invitation of S.R. Kroman, who was then the acting president of Sierra Leone. He was acting as president because Shaka Stevens had traveled to Khartoum for the OAU summit. And we performed on July 26, 1978 at the State House in Sierra Leone. That was the very first time that we had a presidential, performance. But during the performance, in fact, the mayoress of the city of Freetown cried because of the vivid portrayal of the atrocities that we represented, that we portrayed of the apartheid system. She cried, she screamed and cried in the hall. S.R. Kroman was very, very impressed as well. And they had invited all diplomats accredited near Freetown. And all the cabinet ministers were at that performance. And among those distinguished guests that were there was the Liberian ambassador, His Excellency Joseph Morris. He watched the play. Now, again, let me tell you this about a Liberian government official doing his official duty in the best interest of Liberia. When Dr. Morris watched the play, he felt so proud that young students from the University of Liberia who portray the image of Liberia, the culture of Liberia on the international scene. He immediately sent a telegraph to the president. He said, Mr. President, you should see these children. You should see the play that they put up. That play represents the Liberian foreign policy. And you got to see it, Mr. President. And that was all it took. When we returned to Liberia, the next thing we know, we received a green letter from the president's office inviting us to the executive mansion. We had a full support of my artistic father, Bati Moore. We had the blessing of J. Jenkins Peel, who was the minister of information. These are things that in recent times, when we try to promote peace and reconciliation, Decorative Artist Theater, through our chapter in Benelux, Maryland County, and our chapter in Jubilee, Montserrat County, we did not get the support of the ministers of information in Liberia. And we were talking about peace and reconciliation. We were talking about reviving the culture of the country. And for a ministry that is designed by government to promote the history and culture of Liberia and refusing to honor the request and the invitation of the leading playwright and cultural expert in the country shows you the lack of love and appreciation for the culture of the country that they were appointed to serve. And that must not happen again, especially as we move forward, into the new administration. It's very, very crucial and important. Also, with respect to our culture and all of that, so the next thing you know, we were at the executive mansion, we performed for the president and, the chief justice, the speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Abram, Henrys, Chief Justice J.A. Pierre, and, other officials were there. And the president got up to speak. And he was a man that loved the young people. He called the young people his precious jewels. That also is another characteristic that made the youth to really be actively involved during the Talbot administration. He considered the young people his precious jewels. Then they have the National Order Board Conference that they will have throughout the country, where the youth from different counties will gather to meet, to get to know one another, to socialize. And that opened up more avenues for friendship and long-lasting, connections and all of that in the country. So after we performed for him, he didn't stop there. When the Ghanaian head of state was coming to Liberia for a state visit, the president sent for us again because he said he wanted the Ghanaian head of state, Fred Akufo, to watch the play. When Fred Akufo came at that time, he was accompanied by Jerry John Rawlings. He was the pilot that drove the president to Liberia. We had that performance, and Akufo himself was also very impressed. Then the president went further. He instructed the Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency C. Cecil Dennis Jr. He said, Cecil, I want for all diplomats accredited to Liberia to watch the chains of apartheid. That's how revolutionary President Talbot was with respect to when it came to Pan-Africanism. And C. Cecil Dennis Jr. made it possible. And all the diplomats, everybody went to that production. The purpose for that was because the president wanted for us to perform at the Heads of State Summit of the OAU 79 that was held in Liberia. But due to the heavy, security and a lot of activities, we were unable to do it. But you can see how much love the president showed for the culture of the country. Even apart from us, whenever he traveled abroad, he would take the university chorus, or he would take the Kakula University chorus, or he would take cultural ambassador, or he would take the national cultural. To everywhere he went, there has to be something cultural that was there. So that is important. We look forward to helping the incoming government resuscitate our history and culture. Also, okay. Okay, some performance with that. Then what happened also is that the idea of providing incentives for young people is very important. We had the coup in 1980, and when that happened, fortunately by then, I was known internationally and all of that. And with the help of Honorable John G. Ramsey and Dr. Harry Nayu, they kind of organized a means for me to get a Liberian government scholarship to pursue further studies in the United States in theater. Also, I got the blessing of T. Moore. He and myself sat, as father and son, and he told me, Joe, I want you to go and study theater, study about culture, because if I'm unable to do this work that I'm doing, I want you to take my place. So he wrote a letter of recommendation for me into the University of North Carolina School of Theater to go and do my master's in that studies. At the University of North Carolina, which is a Southern university, I also organized Decorative Artist Theater there. And we performed The Chains of Apartheid. Now we're in a different, environment. We're in the South, Jim Crow law era and all of that. And I'm producing a play that shows on a big stage. The ACOC Auditorium is the official theater building, of the university. And I was doing the play for my master's thesis and staged the Chains of Apartheid. I worked along with African Americans and one or two Caucasian, classmates and students participated in the play. And the white audience, the people in the audience that watched the play were so moved that even my classmate that watched the play said, Joe, if this wasn't a production here in the school here on this campus, and if I had a pistol, I was going to shoot you for portraying the white man to be very vicious like that. Well, for him, he was in denial. That's to also show you how important theater, culture, the performing arts is, because it tells a story all by itself in a very vivid manner, and it educates you. And through that production, most of the people that watched the play in North Carolina, confessed that they did not know that those kinds of things were happening. And we're talking about between 1981 to 1983, during those days. So that's how important that was. However, Upon my graduation, I decided to return because I went on the Liberian government scholarship. That's also another thing that I want to tell the young people. You must be faithful to your nation. Be faithful to your people. Be faithful and grateful to people who do good for you. Many Liberian students got scholarships, Liberian government scholarships, came here to America, went to other places. After graduation, they decided to stay instead of returning. Well, I didn't feel that way. I felt that I needed to return to Liberia so that I could help. And of course, the conversation that I had with Baiti Moore, I felt that, I needed to return immediately because he was getting old at that time as well, But a lot of others who and myself came at that time, they stayed and never went back to give back to the country. If you receive a Liberian government scholarship and you travel abroad for studies, when you finish, go back to Liberia. Go back to help your country. The people here, they have a whole lot for themselves, but we don't. And the other thing also is that when you come and you learn and you see all the development and all the ideas here in America, when you go back, try to apply those ideas. Forget about that corruption thing and try to do the best you can. I know it's very difficult. It's difficult because if you have the good leadership, then you will be able to fit in. But it's also important that when you get a scholarship, that you return to do what you can do. Well, you remember I told you the story about Kakula and how Kakula, this fella boy, went to Caribsburg. He fell in love with a Congo girl. They had children, and the children became the relatives, the offspring of both the Congo and the country people, which of course supports the integration and unification process. But God, is a wondrous God. 9 years after I wrote that play, when I returned from the United States, I, an indigenous Liberian from an indigenous royal family, got married to an American Liberian from whose parents originate from Cruiserville, the Port family. But interestingly, we also recall that the play that I wrote, Kakula, was a Pele boy. So guess where did I get married? I didn't get married in Cruiserville. I got married in the capital city of the Pele people, in Banga. You see how God can do things? So when I look at it, Lord, I say, oh, well, how God so crafty like that? How he made me to write the story about myself? And that's what it is. So today, my children, are offspring of the Congo, the American Liberians, the Crown people, and all of that. And that's what Liberia is right now at this time. We're all intermarried. I have a granddaughter. My granddaughter's mother's father is, I think, Kisi. But my granddaughter's mother's mother is Loma. Then my granddaughter, of course, she's Crown. Then her grandma, my wife, is Congo. So that one little child in our family got all the different ethnic connections like that. And there are many Liberian children who are like that. There are many Liberians who are like that. Even the vice president-elect, we from the Kwa side, our son, he got his people also from the neighbor side. You see, so that's how our country is. And this is what we want to teach in our schools so that we can be united, so that we can love one another. Also, I had one of the things also that I want to let the Liberian people know is that When I came back to the United States, as in the Salih, I had the opportunity to go back to school. And because of the situation in Liberia regarding the deprivation of the young people, denying them access to educational opportunities, I decided to pursue a second master's in elementary and special education for people who have mental health, people who have disabilities, and also people who were denied those opportunities, where you have a child during the Liberian War that was 10 years old, maybe in the second grade, and after 30 years, the person is 40 years old with second grade education. So how do you help that person to gain some skills and knowledge for them to be able to do something for themselves? That's what this type of education is all about. And I thought about it. I said, well, Liberia will need something like that someday. So I do have a specialty in that area to address some of the learning needs, vocational technical needs of, those that you consider that you're calling Zoko, which you shouldn't be doing. You should not be, labeling, citizens, or giving them derogatory labels and all of that. We should also embrace those children, those youth, and find opportunities for them to learn, to acquire some skills so they can live a better life. Then also, I did my doctorate in educational leadership, because I know the school system is down. And my specialty is in curriculum development and textbook production, because we need to produce our own textbooks. We need to revamp, reconceptualize the curriculum so that curriculum will be focused on us, will be focused on our learning about immediate environment. We don't want Liberian children going to school from ABC to PhD level or master's level in Liberia, and they don't know where Jubilee town is. You don't know where Jubilee town is, but you can tell me where Paris is. You can tell me where London is. You can tell me where Beijing is. That type of education is useless. That's useless education. Your education must empower you to do the best you can in your own country, in your own immediate environment. And that's one. And also it must make you to become nationally conscious and proud of who you are. Because when you have those kinds of values and qualities, it will be very difficult for you to look at money that's supposed to go to the development of hospitals and squander it. It'll be very difficult for you to see that the labs in the school need equipment and all of that, and you take that money, you eat it, and you deprive the children of receiving quality education. So these kinds of things are very, very good for the system. And that's one way, one area in which we can help. Also, when I returned to Liberia in 1983 and so forth and all of that, and then in 1990 we had the war. When we had the war, I still continued, because don't forget the story that I just told you about the inspiration that I received from the Lord. So he continues to give me power and knowledge to continue his work, to promote peace and reconciliation. So now it was even more challenging for me when the war took place. When the war took place, I, an innocent person who didn't even work in those governments, could have been killed for nothing, because I'm supposed to be quote unquote crowned. But God is a wonderful God. And he saved my wife, my children, my mom, and all the members of my close families that were with me, saved us from that craziness and lack of cultural knowledge that took place in Liberia. God is a wonderful God. So what did I do? I didn't sit down to say, oh, well, because they don't want to see crown people. This, I said, it was up to them. And Liberian people know me for that. If you hear crown people, that's your business. If you hear Manon people and Gio people, that's your business. But so far as I'm concerned, they're my people. They are my brothers and sisters. If you hear Congo people, that's your business, because I'm married to a Congo woman anyway. So in my home, there's no place for those kinds of things. So I worked along with Fred the Shield. We worked together to show the Liberian people that what they were thinking about country and conquer this and that, we didn't have time for that. We worked together as brothers to help bring some semblance, a semblance of normalcy in the Liberian society. We put up plays at the Centennial Pavilion there, because at that time they had, looted the whole place. But we have productions there with American ambassador and people of the diplomatic community coming there to give us support, because they know the power of culture. That was during wartime. We echo more people all over the place. But those diplomats came there. I don't know whether and Sony has a picture of the place, of the thing there. But that photo that you're looking at is a program. The one on the left is the program that we had of President Tob. With President Tob at the Masha. That was a program there. Go on to the next slide, please. That was at the University of North Carolina, and the picture that you see there, this one right here, alongside the University of North Carolina logo, that's the Decanty Artist Theater that I established in America. Some of you come to America, you come to the West, and you take your culture and you put it in the suitcase and you lock it up. No, you're not supposed to lock your culture up in the suitcase. You're supposed to take out your culture and wear it and teach people about where you come from. So that's this picture is a proof of that. I was there in a all white university down south, but I established Decorative Artist Theater. If you bring it closer, you will see that the actors, you see the actors, you see their bare chests and all of that. They were dressed, like African warriors club were doing a play that reflected, the traditional African warriors fighting. So that's why you see that photo there. And those are all African Americans, on that photo. So it's very important that wherever you go, you carry your culture with you. And people will respect you better than for you to not do so. So during the war, we did a whole lot of things. So if you go further, and Sonny, go further, go several slides further. That is when I got stop to that one first. Stop to the one, the wedding. Okay, so as you can see, in all things, you got to have your family. President Toba had his Vicky. President Tubman had his Net. And I got my Minty. And of course, that's my children. And then the photo in the middle there is a scene from the resurrection. There in that production, I am portraying Christianity not as a Western religion. I'm portraying Christianity as an African religion. I'm making Christianity culturally relevant for the people. And that is also very important, because what has happened through colonization, and also with the introduction of Western civilization culture in Liberia, is that the people who introduced Christianity use Christianity to destroy our culture, to denigrate our culture, to say that the things that our ancestors did are barbaric, they are uncivilized, and all of that, which is not true, because of civilization, started from Africa. We taught them civilization. Now they're coming back to tell us that what we taught them is barbaric. It's the same thing when they say that all Africans live in the jungle. But you come here to America, you go in the suburb, they all want to live in the forest. They live among the trees and all of that. So why are you calling me a jungle man when you yourself here in your so-called Western world and you in the jungle yourself? So these contradictions are things that if you know your culture, when somebody comes to you, to belittle your history and your culture, you will stand tall. You will be prepared to resist that as well. Let's go several slides ahead because I want to come to the peace building process. Several slides, keep going. There you go. You see there, this photo here was taken during the heat of the Liberian Civil War. The people you see in the front seat there, they are diplomats. The American ambassador to Liberia at the time, I think in 1992, and the Nigerian ambassador and members of the Nigerian chancellery. And then, of course, you see some international people in the back there, and you see the hall, you see the people in the back there. That was during the war when ECOMOG had to, supervise security in Monrovia. But yet and still, God gave me the power. He gave me the strength and the people to work along with them for us to promote, to project the history and culture of Liberia. And those people you see there are there because they know the value of using culture, using theater, using the performing arts to promote peace and reconciliation. Go to the next slide, please. Keep going. There is Fred the Shield. Fred the Shield at that time was doing the master ceremonies during the play. Go on to another one. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. Listen very keenly. You see these young people in this photograph? This is to show you the resilience of Liberian youth. If I should come to Liberia, I would be coming because of these children. These young people, when the UN peacekeeping force left Liberia, 2019, I was very concerned because I felt that the younger people who had taken over didn't really have the capacity in case if anything happened. And that also because foreign peacekeepers left, that shows us that we should exercise our civic responsibility to keep the peace ourselves. So I, along with some patriotic Liberians and supporters here in the United States, raised funds to launch the Dati Kukatana Peace Project in Liberia. We contacted students from Tottenham University. So the first photograph up there, the youth in the yellow and in the traditional Gbaba stuff that you see there, they're all students and college graduates from Tottenham University that I have never met before. Now another thing about the power of God. I'm here in America, or I haven't come to Liberia since I left. But these are children that God gave me the power. I talk to them. Look how many youth you see there that decided to serve as peace advocates. This picture also, please show that, bring it closer. The lower photo are students from the University of Liberia, the Dubois chapter. University of Liberia, Cottington University, AME Zion, Methodist University, Stella Marie. These are all university students. So what I'm trying to say is that the past administrations have not actively engaged the young people to promote peace and reconciliation in country. Look how many children. When we had the second recruitment, I had over 250 youth who had signed up. But unfortunately, we did not have the money for us to keep the program going. We went as far as to even a lease or building on Jubilee Road with hopes that we were going to get some support from the government so that these children, they were prepared, they trained. I trained them virtually so that they can travel around the country for us to promote peace and reconciliation, to do adult literacy, civic education, and all of that. Yeah, and unfortunately, we didn't get a support. Also, if you show that photo closer again, please, I just want to show you one of my students. The fella, the one in the blue, the fella here in the strapped shirt, is Gbaba Blake. That's my student from Cottington, University. I have a lot of students that are trained, that appreciate me, that support my work. And Gbaba was one of those. When I asked him to go up to be the guest speaker to launch this program, he was very gracious to go and do so. And these young people, we are still prepared, and we look forward to working with the incoming administration for us to go from county to county to promote peace and reconciliation. And the last thing that I want to talk about has to do with the launch of the tripartite anniversary, the fundraiser to construct the first school of the performing and visual arts. But let me tell you, including His Excellency Joseph Newman Boyka and his Vice President-elect, that I am very, very disappointed that in 2008, the National Cultural Center at Kenija was bulldozed, demolished. The artists, the custodians of our culture were driven and thrown in the streets, and the land was sold to a foreign businessman, Bob Johnson, for him to construct a brothel. That's why I will call it not a hotel, but a brothel. A brothel is where you have all these things going on in a place like that. Building a brothel, building a hotel, destroying the cultural property of the country, and building a hotel in the state, that was an abomination. I urge the incoming administration to make sacrifices, burn offerings to the spirits of our forefathers for that serious crime, because it's also a crime. It's a crime for any nation, any individual to destroy a national cultural property. So we're asking, and I see that we're asking with God, we're raising funds to construct a school of the performing and visual arts in Liberia. The School of the Performing and Visual Arts will help us to institutionalize our history and our culture so that it can be taught in the schools, so that it can be recorded and published, so that we can offer degrees in traditional languages, Kram, Bandi, Kisi, Loma, Kru, Vai, Grebo, so that they can be, so we can write it. And even Congo, the Congo language, the Congo culture has to be preserved, because what is happening in Liberia right now is that, one, the Congo, quote unquote, American Liberian population is decreasing every day. It's decreasing because of intermarriages. So In time to come, in the next 25 years, it will be hard for you to see a young child who is just purely Congo, man Congo, and power Congo. It's going to be very difficult. That's one thing. The other thing also is that the Liberian people, because they were the first set of people that the settlers met when they came with warfare and skirmishes and all of that, they too, that population is gradually becoming extinct. They must find a way to preserve their history and culture. It's the same thing with the Bele people. You know, everywhere you go in Liberia, it's hard for you to see a Bele person. It's hard for you to see a Liberian person. That's because those ethnic groups, those languages are gradually becoming extinct, and we need to preserve them. One way to do that is to establish a school of the performing and visual arts and Center for Peace and Cultural Studies. That aspect of our educational system must be prioritized because we just come from a bloody situation in the country. So because of that, it's important that we promote peace and reconciliation, that we teach civics in our schools, that we teach our children how the government is run, the three separate but equal branches of government, and what the responsibility is for each. One of the things that sometimes the Liberian people, because most of them don't understand how the government runs, is that, for instance, they will see that there are no roads. If there are no roads in the country, or there are no good roads in the country, or there are no good schools, or there are no good hospitals, which part of the government is responsible for that? Is it the legislature that is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the country? Is it the judiciary that's responsible, or is it the executive? Once you know the responsibilities of each separate but equal branch of the Liberian government, you will know where the faults are with respect to what's happening in the country, and you will thereby make the right decision to make sure that things are carried out correctly. So teaching our history and culture is very, very important. And we would, by February, next month, the end of February, if we can raise up to about $50,000, we would like to conclude the payment for the land to construct the School of the Performing Arts. The entire project will cost up to $6 million. So it means $6 million for different, departments, to establish different departments: the dance, the theater, the music, traditional music, all the different areas of the program will be, rendered there. And we will be offering diplomas and degrees in those areas. As I was sharing this on social media, somebody told me, man, Gbaba, please, man, you can offer degree in Basa. What that would do, what good is it going to do to the country? Yes, it will do a lot of good. You know why? Because when you learn about one another, you will know what the next person cherishes, what the person doesn't cherish. You will respect the person's beliefs, and they will respect your belief. Not only that, but in advanced countries, you will have a specialist on Basa culture and history, so that if there's anything happening in Basa that needs the intervention of the government, you got somebody who is specialized in that area, who can go and be a mediator between the people, the ethnic group, and the government, and or other ethnic groups, etc. So it's not a bad thing for us to preserve our culture, and it's not a bad thing for us to learn about one another. Cultural diversity, cultural differences, cultural acculturation, all these things are taking place in our country. But there must be institutionalized. And we are here to support the incoming government. We are here to support anybody. Decanty Artist Theater is a non-profit organization. And I want to make it clear that as a non-profit organization, we don't run campaigns, but we can implement programs. We can provide training, teachers training. We can provide cultural programs. We can do a whole lot of things, once we are paid to do it. But we don't take sides with people with political campaigns and all of that. I remember some time ago, someone in the government was very interested in the Country Artist Theater. He wanted to become a sponsor. We welcomed him, but then when they were having some kind of election, by-election, he wanted the organization to go and wear T-shirts, to go and vote for, candidate of his party and all of that. We told him, no, we couldn't do that because it's unprofessional for a non-profit organization to run campaigns, to participate in that level of politicking and all of that. When it comes to national issues, we can work in the interest of everyone. We serve everyone, but we cannot take sides with respect to political things and all of that because it's unprofessional. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of my speech, my Golden Jubilee speech. Today is a golden day. It begins the celebration of 50 years of commitment to the history and culture of Liberia. And as I close my speech, as I close my discussion with you, I want to once again say welcome to the incoming administration. I want to say thank you to the outgoing president of Liberia and his staff for holding the fort. It's very difficult to run a country, especially a post-war society. We want to say thank you so much for all that you did. And we pray that the Lord will help you, will assist you in your future endeavors. We also want to assure His Excellency Joseph Newman Boyka and the incoming administration of our unflinching support to provide professional services in education and culture and to ensure that your administration succeeds. We also want to make it clear that we believe in principles, and we believe that if we work together in truth and in honesty, we can make Liberia a better place for all of us. I want to urge all Liberians that moving forward, let us embrace one another as brothers and sisters, because that's who we are. We are all interrelated. There's no need for us to make a lot of yo-yos anymore. We can use our time wisely to rebuild what we have destroyed. May the God of our forefathers and the spirits of our forefathers be with you now and forevermore. Amen. Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
We all Liberians.